she, It's time to rest now. Let your body settle. Let your shoulders fall softly, like leaves drifting onto still water. Take a deep breath in, and out. You are safe here. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. Notice the soft rhythm of your breathing. Inhale like the wind through old chapel rafters. Exhale like waves lapping against a quiet stone shore. The world is far away now. All the noise, all the worry, all the rush, melting away like wax before a flame. Let the muscles in your face relax. Unclench your jaw. Let your lips part slightly. Let your eyes soften and flutter closed. There is nothing to hold, nothing to carry. Just the story now. Just the sound. Just the dream. Our story today begins in a town that wakes at twilight, where the mist rolls low along the water, where cobbled alleys glisten with evening dew and the lanterns glow like floating stars. There lies a riverside town called Nestled in a bend of the river Varel, it is a place the mapmakers forgot. A place not quite on the way to anywhere. But those who live there say Mir Shalom is exactly where it's meant to half light and always touched by silence. And in the heart of Mia Shalom, near the edge where the riverside reeds begin, stands an old timbered workshop. It leans slightly, like it's bowing to the moon, its chimney crooked. That's where our story lives tonight. Inside that workshop, the air is warm, heavy, bronze, of river clay and ash wood, of beeswax candles, and long-remembered prayers. This is where the Bellfounder works. He is an old man, though no one quite knows how old. His beard is silver and tangled. His hands are thick with callus and soot. The flames crackle. The copper and tin mingle, melt, become something new. But his eyes hold the weight of stars, quiet stars, waiting stars. Each night, when the moon is right, he melts bronze in a great iron cauldron. He stokes the fire with slow, patient movements. The bellows hiss, and as the metal glows red gold, the Bellfounder leans close and whispers. No one knows the words. They are not in any tongue spoken now. They are old words, older than the town, older than the river, older than fear. Words meant for the metal, meant for the soul of the bell. Because long ago, so long that only the wind remembers, people believed that bells had hearts, not just metal. If poured under the right moon, during the right breath of night, with the right words spoken and the right prayer folded between them, a bell could keep sickness away, could hush a storm, could call the living home. The Bellfounder remembers. The Bellfounder believes. And tonight is a rare night. Its belly is lined with ash leaves and tiny carvings. Circles for the sun, curls for the wind, a thin moon night, a dreamer's night. Outside, the willows murmur. The river moves like honeyed silk, and inside, the molten bronze glows like captured starlight. The bell mold waits, half buried in sand, shaped with reed and clay and hand-carved wax, a form prepared with reverence. The Bellfounder takes up a long-handled ladle. He dips it deep into the heart of the cauldron. The metal shimmers and swirls, and as he pours it into the mold, it sings, a low hum, soft, long, and deep. Not a note, not a chime, but a dream. The first breath of something becoming. He watches, not blinking, as the bronze settles. He knows each bell must be born, not made. Outside, a soft wind, the kind that turns pages in forgotten books. It slips through the shutter cracks, rustles the dried herbs hanging from the beams. Thyme and lavender and marjoram, a scent like memory. The Bellfounder wipes his brow with a linen cloth worn soft by decades. He whispers once more, a closing blessing. Then he sits by the hearth, where embers sigh like old stories. His cat, a soot gray thing with one torn ear, curls beside his feet. They sit in silence, listening. Because when a bell is cast, there is a moment when the world listens back, and somewhere in that moment, between heat and hush, between breath and bell, not the kind of dreams that come with sleep, but the kind that arrive when the world is quiet enough to hear them. He sees towers rising through fog. He sees bells swinging in cathedral spires, singing over fields of golden grain. He sees children laughing beneath their sound. He sees storms held at bay. He sees candles lit in thanks. He sees his beldis, very one hung high above the town, its note true and steady. He sees the people look up, not in fear, but in peace, because they know the bell remembers, and so the old Bellfounder smiles. His work is not done, but it is good. And as the wind hums through the rafters and the fire flickers low, he begins to drift, just a little, and you, too, may feel yourself drifting now, held gently in the rhythm of this place. The river's hush, the bronze's breath, the whisper of prayers lost in metal. Let the warmth of the forge wrap around you like a soft wool blanket. Let the bell's dream ring gently in your ears. Low, slow, steady. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. The Bellfounder stirs slowly in his worn wooden chair, the one carved with lilies and moons. The cat lifts its head just enough to check the shadows, then curls again, tail flicking like the end of a candle wick. All around, the workshop is hushed, but not still. There is always motion here, even in sleep. Above the bell mold, A shimmer begins to form a breath, a wisp like steam from a warm cup, left out in winter air. It hovers, lingers, and then, slowly, it begins to take shape. Not a person, not a ghost, not quite. More like a memory made visible. The Bellfounder is still dreaming, but this part of the dream is ancient, worn soft by centuries of belief. It is said that when a bell is cast with devotion, under the right moon, with clean hands, steady breath, and whispered prayers from the old tongue, a bell spirit may come to watch its birth. The spirit is not like a fairy or an angel. It does not speak in words. It does not ask questions. It simply listens. It listens to the metal as it cools. Listens to the stories left in the breath of the fire. And listens most of all to the dreams of the Bellfounder himself. This one, this spirit. A curve of sound in air, silver at the edges. Soft as breath. It hovers over the mold and waits. Waits for the bell's note to form. Because each bell is born with a note inside it, a single sound, whole and pure. The Bellfounder does not shape it. It simply is. Some bells sing high, like sunlight on glass. Some hum deep, like the belly of a mountain. Some weep. Some laugh. Some are silent for many years, until the right hand strikes them. This one, though, this one begins with a low murmur. A tone like twilight itself, neither night nor day, neither sorrow nor joy. A promise, a thresh. The spirit shimmers, listening, and as the sound deepens, it folds its shape around it, like a cloak drawn over a sleeping child. The bell has begun to remember who it is. Down the riverbank, the town of Miashelo is quiet. The streets are empty, but not lifeless. There is a kind of a tension in the air, like 1,000 dreams being dreamed at once. A baby stirs in her cradle, then settles again. A baker mutters in sleep about flour and honey. An old widow murmurs the name of someone she once loved, long ago. And beneath it all, like the root beneath the stone, the bell's song begins to seep outward, not loudly, not yet, as though they, too, have heard something worth remembering. But the vibration of it touches things. The ivy that grows thick along the chapel wall sways just slightly, though no wind touches it. The rowboat, tied to the dock, nudges against its post, as though drawn by a sound beneath the water. The iron hinges on the town gate let out a slow, contented creak. Back in the workshop, not with a jolt, but like a lantern slowly lit, and walks to the mold. The bronze is still warm, but no longer glowing. He doesn't touch it. He listens, he hears the silence. And the silence is full. He rises, joints creaking like the old floorboards. He bows his head, whispers once more. This time, it is not a casting prayer. It is a thank you, The spirit lingers a moment longer, and then, like a breath exhaled through frost, it fades. Not gone, simply resting, waiting for the bell to ring. The next day dawns misted and silver. The Bellfounder does not open his shutters. The bell must cool on its own time. The metal must sleep. Instead, he goes about his morning as he always does. He grinds barley into flour. He feeds the cat, who pretends not to care. He polishes a small bronze bell on the shelf by the window, the very first one he ever made. It cracked when it was struck. No spire, no choir, just a space for quiet. Too much tin, too little fire, but he's kept it all these years. A reminder that even failure has a voice. By midday, he walks to the town chapel. It is small whitewashed stone and wooden beams, a roof of moss-covered slate. He enters. He kneels. He does not pray. He listens. And though no one else can hear it, he senses the echo of a note not yet struck. By evening, the Bellfounder returns to his workshop. The sand has cooled. The mold has settled. And the air holds that peculiar stillness that comes only before. He brushes the sand away carefully, lifts the mold's top half, and there it is. The bell, still dull, still rough, not yet polished, not yet tuned, but whole, shaped. He runs his fingers over its surface-warm metal, not hot. He sees the impressions of the carvings, the curled wind, the sun's wheel, and there just beneath the crown a circle he didn't carve, a ripple, the spirit's mark. He nods, not in surprise, but in thanks. He lifts the bell, cradling it like a newborn. He places it on the workbench by the open window, and for the first time, the breeze touches it. The leaves rustle. The night deepens, and somewhere, very quietly, the bell sings. Let your breath follow the rhythm now, in and out, like the Bellfounder's gentle hands, like the river's slow current, like the warm hush of settling sand. The bell is born, are drifting deeper, just like the sound that moves without needing to be heard. You are floating now, safe, cradled, held. By candlelight, the Bellfounder turns the newly born bell in his hands. Its weight, its skin carries no cracks, no flaws. Only the gentle ripple mark near its crown, like the touch of a fingertip upon still water. A spirit's signature. He sets it gently upon a padded stool, then begins to prepare the tuning tools. In this part of the process, there are no flames, no cauldron, no whispering prayers, only small files, tuning forks, and the Bellfounder's ear. He has done this so many times, but never once the same. Each bell has its note hidden within, and tuning is not about forcing it into shape. It's about listening and removing what does not belong. He strikes the bell gently with a padded wooden mallet. The sound rings out low and soft, like fog rolling over a moor. The note blooms outward, not loudly, but fully. The Bellfounder closes his eyes and listens. It is almost there. He files the inner edge just slightly. A whisper of bronze dust falls like golden flour. He strikes again. Closer now. Another tiny stroke. Another note. And then a pause. The Bellfounder tilts his head, and slowly, very slowly, it is done. The bell's note has revealed itself. He carries the bell outside. The mist has returned, weaving low through the reeds along the river. Lanterns glow like sleepy fireflies. The sky is scattered with stars, and the moon is thin and silver, like a coin worn smooth by time. He walks to the chapel. The doors are open, as they always are when the Bellfounder has something new to offer. Inside, the townspeople are gathered, hushed and waiting. They do not clap. They do not cheer. This is not that kind of ceremony. It is a listening. Children sit cross-legged on woven rush mats. Old men lean upon their canes. Women hold their shawls close, as if to catch the sound in their arms. The Bellfounder lifts the bell with both hands and places it gently upon a block of stone at the front of the chapel. No one speaks. Not even the cat, who has padded in behind him, and now curls beside the altar with half-lidded eyes. He lifts the mallet again, the same one his father used, and his father before him, and with a breath as long as the river's curve, the bell rings. Not loud, not sharp, but full. A sound that enters not through the ears, but through the chest. It settles in the bones. It finds the quiet corners inside each person and fills them. The sound is not joy, not sorrow. It is simply true. The sound of home. Some close their eyes. Some weep, though they do not know why. Some simply sit still as the note vibrates through wood, through stone, through breath. When the sound finally fades, no one speaks. They do not need to. The silence afterward is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the sound listening back. That night, the bell is hung in the chapel's small wooden belfry. It will not ring often, not like a church clock or a call to prayer. This bell is not for marking hours. It is for moments that matter. It will ring when storms gather beyond the hills. When a child is born, when someone passes into memory, when the river rises too high, or when the people simply forget what peace sounds like, it will remind them that they are watched over, that the wind still listens, that the night still holds them, that the bell was made with care, and that care still matters. Back in his workshop, the Bellfounder cleans his tools with gentle, practiced hands. The cauldron rests cold and empty, but the warmth of the bell still lingers in the walls. It hums softly in the rafters. It glows in the soot-dark beams. He sits in his chair once more. The cat leaps softly into his lap. He strokes its back, slowly. The fire is not lit, but somehow he does not feel cold. Outside, the river flows, a quiet lullaby. And water. And above, the moon climbs higher, casting silver paths across the bell's curve. And the Bellfounder, with eyelids heavy and heart full, begins to drift again. Let your body follow his now. Let it grow heavy, soft, quiet. You may feel the weight of your own day melting, like metal into fire, like breath into silence. The bell's song is still there, carried through the air, woven into night. Let it rock you gently. You are safe, you are warm, you are home. The townspeople of Miar Shalot wake slowly. No cock crows here only, the river's hush and the whisper of willow leaves. There is a gentleness to waking in Miar, as though the town itself does not wish to disturb your dreams too quickly. In the chapel belfry, the new bell hangs silent. Its weight is sure. Its voice resting. But the spirit within it, if you were to listen closely, is wide awake, not anxious, not waiting, just aware. A soft awareness, like a candle's flicker in the dark. It watches, it listens, and it dreams along with the town. In the Bellfounder's workshop, the air is touched with smoke and sweet with morning bread. The Bellfounder has already been to the baker's stall by the river bend, where loaves rest in wide baskets, and the crusts are marked with small flower crosses. He tears off a corner of rye and dips it in honey from a jar he keeps on the windowsill, amber thick and fragrant with summer clover. The cat sits on the windowsill, its tail flicking like a metronome. It watches a spider lower itself from the rafters on a perfect silver thread. The Bellfounder watches too. He does not speak. He does not move. He simply watches the light catch in the web, the morning turning it to gold. There is magic in simple things. He has always known that. By mid-morning, he turns to the shelves along the far wall. Dozens of small bells hang here, each one a memory, each one with its own story. Some are travel-worn, smoothed by years on the necks of horses or goats. Some are ritual bells, once used in ceremonies, now forgotten. Some are flawed, too thin, too thick, cracked during casting. He takes them down, one by one, and dusts them with a soft cloth. He speaks to them as he does, not in words, not really more, like hums, tones, soft fragments of old songs. To the Bellfounder, each bell is a companion, a keeper of time, a guardian of sound. He believes that no bell ever truly falls silent, only rests between ringings. In the weeks that follow, the Bellfounder casts 3 more bells. One for a shepherd in the hills above town, whose flock tends to wander too far after rain. This bell is small, shaped like a thimble, with etchings of clouds and curling wind along its rim. Another for the ferry that crosses the river to the orchard fields, to be rung in fog or during harvest festivals, when children tossed apple blossoms into the Varel and sing songs about swans made of stars. The third bell is different. He doesn't know who it's for yet. He just knows he must make it. The spirit is already waiting. He can feel it. He begins the casting under a new moon. No light, no silver, only darkness and fire. The flames leap higher than usual. The bronze glows bright, almost urgent. He doesn't whisper prayers this time. He sings. A deep, slow chant in a language older than roads. A song of beginnings, of clay and copper and river stone. He pours the metal, and as it flows into the mold, he feels something shift in the room. A presence, not just watching, but walking. That night, he does not sleep. He sits before the fire with a blanket over his shoulders and a bell on his lap. Not the new one. This is a bell he made long ago, a pilgrim's bell, worn and dented from 100 miles of walking. He strikes it once. The sound echoes longer than it should, as if bouncing off something unseen. He closes his eyes, and dreams come, soft and full. But they are not his dreams. This time, they are the bells. He sees a storm rising over the town. Not wind, not rain, but sorrow. People walking with heads low, windows shuttered, no songs sung, no laughter rising from the tavern, no stories told by firelight. The chapel bell is silent, but in his dream, the unfinished bell, the one still cooling in his workshop, and the note it sings is not somber. It is bright, clear, courageous. It is a reminder of resilience, of voices that rise. It is a bell that wakes people up, not from sleep, but from forgetting who they are. The Bellfounder wakes just before dawn. He sits still. He lets the last of the dream linger, like fog before it lifts. Then he rises. He does not speak, but he knows what must come next. Let yourself breathe with him now. Inhale, like the bell's slow rise toward the belfry. Exhale, like the note that fades but never fully disappears. The story hums in your chest, like the bells echo in the bones of the chapel walls. You are floating between dream and day, between the bell's shaping and its song. It is morning again, but the town of Mir Shallow does not stir. The windows stay closed, the ferry untied but unmoving. A strange stillness drapes the village, not from sleep, but from silence. A hush that doesn't come from peace, but from worry. Something has swept in with the fog. Not a sickness, exactly, and not a fear that wears a name, but a forgetting. Songs are harder to recall. Steps heavier. The laughter of children lost its shape. The Bellfounder sees it first in the eyes of the children. They walk slowly now. Don't ask for stories. Don't chase the cat or throw pebbles into the river. He hears it in the chapel too. When the bell is rung, it sounds the same, but it no longer stirs anyone. The tone is clear, but the hearts of the people are not. That night, he lights the forge again, not for a new bell, but to wake the old one, the one still cooling in its clay womb, the one cast in darkness, under no moon, with fire and song instead of prayer. The mold falls away cleanly. No cracks, no blemishes, only a smooth surface. And at its center, etched in a ring, only the fire could leave, is a circle of stars. 7 points. Like the ancient constellations charted by pilgrims. He did not carve them. The bell made them itself. He does not strike it right away. Instead, he carries it still warm, out into the night. Down cobbled paths, past houses, cloaked in silence, past the lamplight that flickers but does not glow. He brings it to the water's edge, to the very place where the river turns wide. And the reeds whisper like voices, just beyond reach. They're under stars that watch but do not speak. He sets the bell upon a stone. Because this bell, he knows, is not meant to be rung by one man. Its voice needs more than one pair of hands. It needs more than one pair of ears. It needs a village. So he waits. He waits as the sky deepens. He waits as owls sweep soundlessly over the water. He waits as mist braids through the reeds. And then a child comes. A girl no older than 10, one of the shepherd's daughters, barefoot, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes bright, even in the dark. She says nothing, but sits beside the bell and places her small palm against the metal. It hums. Our story continues. Not in the town, but within the bell itself. Because what most people don't know is that a bell, once cast, carries a world inside it. A memory of every hand that shaped it, every breath spoken near its rim, every silence it was meant to break. And the bell hung in Mir Shalot's chapel. The first one, the twilight one. Yes, bells dream too. They dream not in words or pictures, but in echoes and weight. And if you were small enough to step inside its sound, if you could tuck yourself gently into its hollow heart, there is no floor inside the bell's dream, only mist, soft and rising. You float, not falling, just held. The walls curve around you like the inside of a seashell. Smooth and vast, etched faintly, with stories you can't quite see, but can feel, as if every moment of the town is etched here in bronze. And then, gently, the bell begins to ring. Not in the world outside, but in here. The sound begins low, a hum so deep it almost feels like silence. But you know it's not. You feel it in your fingertips, your breath, your bones, and the dream begins to change. Suddenly, the mist parts, and you are floating above the town, but not the town you know. This is Mir Shalot, as it once was. When the chapel was only a hut of woven reeds, and the forge was a circle of stones beside the river. There is no stone road yet, no ferry, but there are people, washing linen in the water, tending bees, carving boats from green ash. They do not speak your language, but you understand them, because their lives ring with the same notes of longing, of care, of building. You see a woman lifting her child. You see an old man stirring stew with a stick. You see lovers brushing hands beside a fence of hazelwood, and each gesture, each breath, sings faintly. The bell remembers them all. Then the dream shifts. Now the town is older. There is a chapel, small and strong. There is a market now. Carts, lanterns, a wooden bridge over the Varel. You see a wedding. The groom wears a cloak sewn by his sister's hand, and when they kiss, the bell rings. You see mourning. A child is carried in a cradle of birch branches, surrounded by candlelight. The townspeople sing softly, and again, the bell rings. You see springtime ribbons strung between trees. You see frost fingers blown. And each moment, every birth, every goodbye, every harvest stays inside the bell, as if it is not just a vessel for sound, but for memory itself. Only slightly, but enough to wake something in the wind. Then comes an old man, the tavern keeper. He walks slow, coughs into his sleeve, but when he sees the bell, he kneels, places his cane beside it, and listens. Next come two sisters from the orchard, a stonemason, a boy who carries buckets to the mill, a woman who hasn't spoken since winter. They all come, not because they were called, but because something inside them remembered. The bell was made for them, and they were made to hear it. The Bellfounder does not move. He stands in shadow, a witness only. As the townspeople gather, each one places a hand upon the bell, and slowly, without any word, they begin to hum. Low at first, uneven, unsure, but then, together, a single, rising, like breath becoming music, and the bell begins to sing. Not struck, not swung, not pulled by rope, but awakened, The note is soft like dawn brushing a hillside, but it grows, and in it are woven 1,000 things. Laughter that had been lost, the scent of saffron cakes in spring, the feel of calloused hands, the warmth of wool drying by the hearth, the rhythm of rowing across the river, the hush of snowfall. Much lag, the song of cradle rocking, the silence of held grief, the joy of returning. It is not one note. It is every note Meershallow has ever needed, and when it fades, the people do not weep. They do not cheer. They simply breathe again. That night, the fog lifts. The lamps glow. Bread rises in ovens. Children laugh. Not because the bell solved anything, but because it reminded them of who they were before they forgot. And that was enough. The Bellfounder walks back to his workshop, hands warm despite the chill. He doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. He knows the bell will ring again when it is truly needed, and that when it does, the town will be ready because they remember now how to listen, how to hum, how to hope. Let yourself settle again. Deeper still, you may feel the echo of the townspeople's hum in your chest. A warmth, a remembering. Let it guide you downward, into stillness, into rest. You are safe. You are seen. You are not alone. Now, the dream changes again. You see the Bellfounder younger this time, his beard shorter, his hands less worn, but still his eyes carry that same quiet knowing. He kneels before the forge, whispers a prayer, and pours. It is not the bell you know. It is an earlier one. It cracks in the mold. You feel his sorrow, but you also feel his stillness, his patience. He begins again and again until he gets it right. The bell's dream is a long one. It stretches through centuries like threads of spun gold, but never frays, because each time the bell is rung, it rings, not just with sound, everything it has protected, everything it remembers. And now, in the center of the dream, the bell rings once more, and this time the note does not echo. It wraps around you, lifts you, carries you like a boat across still waters. And somewhere in that note, you hear your own voice, not speaking, not singing, but simply being part of the sound, part of the story, part of the memory. You are not outside it. You are inside the bell's song, and it welcomes you. It holds you. Like bronze shaped to fit a world, like silence shaped to cradle meaning. like a bell shaped to ring only once, but forever. Outside the dream, the night deepens. The chapel is still. The river flows. The cat curls tighter into its corner of the windowsill. And in the workshop, the Bellfounder sleeps. Not alone, not forgotten, but with the sound of the bell wrapped gently around him, like a lullaby made from metal and breath. You may feel it now. That same lullaby curling around you, like the mist that wraps the town, like the flame that shaped the bell, like the dream that never ends. Let your body sink deeper into rest. Let the bell's warmth settle into your chest. You are not falling. You are floating. Floating in sound. Floating in time. And you are held. Our story continues, where dreams and river currents flow together. In the quiet hours just before dawn, when the stars are slipping away one by one. Not fire this time, not bronze, or smoke, or anvils, wide and glassy, with no banks in sight. Only the sound of ripples and a great hush, the hush that comes before something is understood. In the dream, he is not old, nor young. He is simply himself, the version that has always been there, beneath the ash, beneath the weight of time. He stands barefoot in the shallows, his forge apron fluttering behind him like a shadow of flame. The water moves around his ankles like silk, not cold, not warm, just present. And ahead of him, floating on the river, is a bell, but not any he has ever made. This one is silver white. It hums, a long, smooth tone, like a beam of light, stretched thin. He reaches for it, but the bell drifts further away, not taunting, not testing, just moving. So he follows. As he walks, the river deepens, now to his knees, now to his waist. But the water never resists. It parts for him, like the years have like the metal once did. And still, the bell sings. It sings in a voice that sounds like none, and all like wind through pine needles. Like a mother humming in the dark, like the low murmur of someone praying over something precious. He keeps following, until the river is a mirror, and the bell floats perfectly above its reflection. And then, a whisper, not from the bell, but from something beyond it. Something older, it says. The bell remembers. But do you? He stops. The river stops. Even the sound of the bell holds still, like a breath taken in and never exhaled. He looks into the water, and there, not his reflection, but moments. Moments forgotten. Moments he didn't know were still living in him. He sees the face of the woman who once brought him bread when his first casting failed. He sees the boy who watched him pour metal with eyes full of wonder and soot. He sees his father, hammering a horseshoe while singing under his breath. Moments that made him, moments that held him, moments that the bell remembered, even when he did not. And the voice whispers again, each bell is a promise. What was yours? He doesn't answer aloud. He knows. His promise was never just to cast metal. It was to cast meaning. To shape something that would sing long after he was gone. To make something so true, so carefully and lovingly made, that the world would listen and find itself softer, still, held. The river begins to move again, gently carrying the silver bell toward the horizon. And the Bellfounder doesn't follow this time. He watches and smiles. Because he understands now, the bell does not need to stay. Its sound has already gone ahead, already stirred the trees, already whispered over the rooftops, already found its way into the dreams of sleeping children. It always does. That is the promise. The dream fades slowly, not like a shutter closing, but like mist, lifting off the surface of morning water. The Bellfounder stirs in his sleep. A soft sigh escapes him. Outside the window, the forge is quiet, but the coals remember. Inside the chapel, the bell hangs steady, but the air still hums from its last song, and the town, oh, the town is safe, because someone, long ago, melted bronze beneath a twilight sky and whispered prayers into flame. They melted in. They became part of the bell. They became the dream, and the dream lives on. So let your breath flow like the river now, soft and steady. Let your thoughts drift like silver bells on dark water. And know this, the promise holds for you too. You are shaped by every kindness you've given, every silence you've honored. Every time you've held someone in the warmth of your listening. That sound, that memory, that promise is part of you now. Let yourself rest in that knowing. Let the bell keep watch. The Bellfounder awoke, not with a start, but with a sigh. The kind of sigh that comes after tears, though no tears had fallen, not from his eyes, at least, but perhaps from the forge, where the coals still glowed faintly in the ash. He sat up slowly in the dim light, his joints cracking like old timbers in a winter cottage. It clung to the edges of his sight, like fog clings to a hillside long after the sun has risen. He rubbed his hands together, and though they were calloused and worn, he felt something lighter in them this morning. Not absence, not forgetfulness, but release. He stepped outside. The mist still draped the river like a shawl. It always lingered near the water's edge, this time of day, curling between the trees, gathering around the feet of the old stone bridge. The bell tower stood in silhouette, a dark, gentle outline above the chapel roof, and the great bell within it, the one he had cast 15 winters ago, hung quiet. but he could hear it. Not with his ears, with his bones, with his breath. He heard the echo of its song, the hum it had left in the air after the last storm. The murmur it carried through the town when the baker's child had been born too soon, but strong.
A marker?
A thread. And now he felt it more than ever. How the bell was not merely an object, but a soul keeper. A voice for those who no longer had one. A protector, not through might, but through resonance. He stood for a long time in that cool silence, letting it press against his skin, letting it tell him what the fire never had. He knew then it was time to make one more. Not just another bell, but a keeper. Something not to fill a tower, but to carry a prayer. Perhaps not for a church, but for the fields, for the animals, for the tired-hearted. One last bell to hold the hush of the river, the warmth of the coals, the echo of dreams. He spent the morning walking the town. The streets were waking gently. Wooden shutters creaked open. A broom brushed softly at the cobbles, and a few white linens fluttered on lines strung between windows. Children ran toward the riverbank, barefoot and laughing, chasing after a kite made of reeds and blue cloth. He smiled at them, and they waved, as if his presence were not strange, but expected. At the edge of the town square, a young potter was setting out her wares, smooth bowls and mugs in earth tones, some with little swirls carved along the rims. "Master Aldrin," she said softly, offering him a piece of bread with fig jam. He took it gently, and as he bit into it, he closed his eyes. The taste, sweet, simple, real, reminded him of another morning, when someone else had shared bread with him in silence. He would cast the bell not for the town, not for the sky, but for the bread, for the hands that shaped it, for the mornings that rise quietly and give without asking. He returned to the forge, his steps lighter, though his bones still carried the years. He opened the shutters, let in the soft morning wind, let it stir the ashes, let it bless the silence. Then he sat by the cold hearth, hands folded, eyes closed, and he whispered, not a prayer in the way books instruct, but a remembering for the fig and the child, for the reeds and the hush, for the dream that called me to follow. Let the bell ring true, not just loud. When he opened his eyes, he could feel the forge waiting, not impatiently, and so was he. That evening, under a rising moon, not full, not new, but at that perfect in-between, rusted goblets and a small toy horse someone had left at his door seasons ago to carry time. He ground willow charcoal, sifted river sand, and packed the mold with a reverence more like weaving than forging. And when he built the fire, he fed it slowly, not with force, with rhythm, a log at a time, a whisper at a time, until the flames rose like orange prayers into the velvet sky, and the stars blinked awake. The metal began to melt, thick, golden, gleaming like dawn syrup. And as he stirred, he whispered once again, not in words this time, but in hums, just sound. The way bees sing to their hives, the way wind hums through trees, the way the river speaks without speaking, and the metal listened, and it remembered. So let yourself breathe slowly again. Let the rhythm of fire move gently through you, not hot, not dangerous, just warm, steady, safe. The bell is not yet cast, but the dream is shaping. Even now, as you lie in your soft bed, wrapped in the hush of your own night, the Bellfounder tends to the molten promise, the golden memory, and in time, you will hear it ring. But for now, let sleep wrap around you like warm cloth. Let the echo stay with you. Let the dream deepen. The mold stood ready, its curve traced with careful tools, its inner walls smoothed and carved with a single word, not in Latin, nor the local tongue, but in the quiet script he'd dreamt the night before. But for remembrance, he would not tell the villagers what the word meant. It was not meant for them to read. It was meant to reside, to hum invisibly each time the bell rang. Outside, the wind brushed the eaves, not harsh, but attentive, like someone tucking in a blanket or closing a shutter with gentle hands. The Bellfounder stirred the crucible again, molten bronze, now fully liquid, its surface swirling like the eye of a dust-colored storm. He watched it carefully as the fire cast soft shadows behind him. They danced along the stone walls, shifting in and out of shape like past selves passing by. One of the shadows lingered longer than the others. Small, lightly stooped. It held nothing, but it seemed to reach toward the mold. He smiled, knowing her shape, knowing her silence. She'd come, as always, when the metal sang. He lifted the crucible, slowly, carefully, with the same care one might offer when lowering a newborn into a crib. The ladle tilted, a golden ribbon, smooth, steady, thick like honey, but bright like starlight. Not a hiss, only the sound of union like wind through dry wheat or the sigh of old doors closing. And as the last of the metal slipped inside, he whispered one more phrase, half in breath, half in thought. Let the bell carry not my voice, but the space between all voices. He covered the mold, sealed it in with clay and sand, and placed a small piece of lavender atop its crown. Not for luck. For stillness, the bell would cool for many nights. The metal would settle, shrink into shape, and find its voice in silence. And so, he rested, not with sleep, but in the chair near the forge, his arms draped like old cloth, his gaze tilted toward the fire's remnant. He did not dream this time. He simply listened to the pop of coals, to the creak of timbers overhead, to the occasional night bird calling out in the woods. And under it all, he heard the bell, still unshaped, still hidden inside its casing, but already speaking, not in notes or chimes, but in tone, a low, steady, like someone you love breathing beside you while they sleep. Days passed slowly. The townsfolk went about their work, fishing, mending nets, dyeing cloth, carving spoons from alder wood. They noticed he no longer spoke much, but they didn't worry. He had always spoken more with his craft than his tongue. Sometimes the children left him little gifts, a feather from a kestrel, a pebble shaped like a heart, a drawing of a bell with wings. He placed each gift in the quietest corner of his workshop, near the old bell molds, not on display, because even the smallest thing, when witnessed, gains weight. At last, the night came to open the mold. The moon was a silver bowl above the forge, and the air was so still, even the river had stilled its song. He dug slowly, hands steady, brushing away ash, clay, and time. And there it was, nestled like an egg in a nest of earth, smooth golden gray, still warm to the touch. He did not lift it yet. Instead, he sat before it, legs crossed, hands on knees. And he looked, not to inspect, but to see. The way one looks at a face long absent, now returned. When he finally rose, he used a wide sling of linen to cradle the bell. It was smaller than some, not made for towers, but for hands. A shepherd's bell, perhaps, a prayer bell, a dream bell. He hung it from a slender wooden stand and tapped it once with the tip of his finger, but deeply. The sound rolled out like fog, curling along the floor, rising into the rafters, spilling into the night. It touched the windows, the vines outside, the edge of the river, and everything it touched seemed to pause, to listen. Somewhere a door opened. Somewhere a tear fell. And somewhere, far from the forge, a child who had been afraid to sleep suddenly yawned and sighed and closed their eyes, because that's what the bell did. It did not alarm. It did not demand. It reminded. It remembered. It held. So now, in your bed, feel that hum, not in your ears, but in the air around you, in the space just above your heart. Let the weight of your body deepen against the mattress. Let your fingers uncurl. There is nothing you must carry. The bell carries it for you now. Each breath you take is another ring, another step into dreaming. Sleep is near, and the bell, he is keeping watch. Just as you drift, just as you begin to dream. The bell hung 4 days in the hush of the Bellfounder's forge. He didn't touch it again, not to polish, not to measure. It had taken its shape. It had taken its soul. He would not chisel it. He would not etch it. Let it remain. As it emerged, as a child comes into the world with closed eyes, with a knowing breath. Outside, the town continued. Wheels creaked over muddy roads. Geese honked in soft protest. Even the fishermen's nets sighed as they were hauled ashore. And yet, no matter the clamor, those who passed the Bellfounder's workshop walked just a little slower, spoke just a little quieter. They didn't know why. They simply did. One night, an old woman came to the forge. She wore a cloak sewn with pine needles. Her boots had been mended with silver thread. And though her hands were gnarled, her voice held the steadiness of someone who had watched many winters come and go and had grown kinder with each one. She did not knock. She simply stood in the threshold. The Bellfounder looked up, and she nodded once. No name exchanged, only the truth that lives in silence. She gestured toward the bell, and he understood. He wrapped it in soft felt, tied with river twine, and handed it to her, as though he were handing her dusk itself. She tucked it into her satchel, gave a whisper of thanks, and turned away. But before she vanished into the night, she paused, and without looking back, she said, "When it's most needed, and after that, only the wind will know." Weeks passed, then seasons. The forge cooled. The Bellfounder, too, not in spirit, but in pace. He spent long hours walking the riverside, tracing pebbles with his cane, listening for things others could not hear. Sometimes people asked him to make bells again, for ships, for chapels, for towers meant to scrape the sky. He smiled gently and said, no, not because he was done, but because the bell had not yet finished singing. In the town square, a tale began to spread. That a bell had rung once in a village far across the fields, not from a tower, but from a windowsill. The story went that a young girl, very sick, had been given the bell by her grandmother. Too weak to rise, she had held it in her hands and whispered to it. And just once, not by touch, but by trust, the bell had rung. Its sound had drifted through the house, over the fields, into the roots of the trees. By morning, the fever had broken, and no one could remember if the bell had ever been there at all. Of course, the townsfolk didn't know it was his bell. Not exactly, but they came to his forge a little more often, not to request, just to sit, to watch the river, to warm their hands at the hearth. Sometimes children brought him poems, or feathers, or smooth stones in the shape of moons. He kept every one. Then, one morning, he found something new. On the workbench, beside his hammer, lay a sprig of white heather, fresh, dubited, tied with a single strand of silver thread. For he had dreamt of white heather the night before, not as a plant, but as a chime, as a note held in the air by memory, and in the dream the bell had returned. Hung now in a hollow tree, swaying not by hand, but by wind, its song heard only by owls and moss, and the roots that remember every footstep ever taken. He took the heather, set it by the window-sill, and lit a single candle beside it. The flame leaned toward the breeze, and as dusk arrived, he sat once more by the edge of the hearth, no longer waiting to the breath of the world, to the space between sounds, to the hush that always comes before something meaningful is spoken. And now you, too, may listen to that hush. The bell may be far, but its voice lingers in every leaf that turns, in every dream that floats just out of reach. Let your limbs grow heavy, your eyelids soft. Let the air settle around you like a velvet curtain being drawn over the day. The forge is quiet now, the night full and deep, and in this hour you need do nothing but rest. The bell watches, and sleep, like bronze poured at twilight, comes slowly, gently, completely. The leaves had begun their silent fall, golden, russet, and soft as breath, they drifted down from the poplars along the riverbank, settling on the still water like forgotten thoughts. The Bellfounder's forge, quiet now, wore a shawl of moss along its stone base. A spider had spun a delicate bridge between the window lattice and the old bellows. The hearth no longer glowed, but still held the scent of iron and oak. He had not fired it in months. And yet, when he stepped inside each morning, he bowed his head, as though entering a chapel. For it was not the flames he honored, but what they had taught him. That morning, he stood before his workbench, running his hands over the grain of the wood. He felt something beneath his fingertips, a slight dent in the surface, as if someone had set something there in the night. A circle. Smooth. He looked down. Nothing. But in his mind, he could feel it. A ring. No larger than a coin, but memory that had not yet happened. He stepped out into the fog. The world was hushed, as though waiting for a single note to be sung. He walked toward the old abbey, its roof half collapsed, its bells long since fallen from the rafters, yet still he came. Every seventh day, not to pray, not to speak, but to listen. He would sit where the choir stalls once were, beneath the open sky, and close his eyes. And there, he would hear the faint tolling of bells that no longer hung, not in his ears, but somewhere deeper, a sound that curved through his chest, like the turning of the moon. That day, as he sat, a crow landed beside him, not startling, not loud, just there, watching. It held something in its beak, a long silvery feather. It tilted its head, then dropped the feather at his feet, and without waiting, he picked it up carefully, light as breath. It shimmered at the edges as if dusted with frost, and though he knew it was only a feather, he held it the way one holds a relic. No, not because he was done, but because the bell had not yet finished singing. In the town square, a tale began to spread, that a bell had rung once in a village far across the fields, not from a tower, but from a windowsill. The story went that a young girl, very sick, had been given the bell by her grandmother. Too weak to rise, she had held it in her hands and whispered to it. And just once, not by touch, but by trust, the bell had rung. Its sound had drifted through the house, over the fields, into the roots of the trees. By morning, the fever had broken, and no one could remember if the bell had ever been there at all. Of course, the townsfolk didn't know it was his bell. Not exactly, but they came to his forge a little more often, not to request, just to sit, to watch the river, to warm their hands at the hearth. Sometimes children brought him poems, or feathers, or smooth stones in the shape of moons. He kept every one. Then, one morning, he found something new. On the workbench, beside his hammer, lay a sprig of white heather, fresh, dubited, tied with a single strand of silver thread. For he had dreamt of white heather the night before, not as a plant, but as a chime, as a note held in the air by memory, and in the dream, the bell had returned. Hung now in a hollow tree, swaying not by hand, but by wind, its song heard only by owls and moss, and the roots that remember every footstep ever taken. He took the heather, set it by the windowsill, and lit a single candle beside it. The flame leaned toward the breeze, and as dusk arrived, he sat once more by the edge of the hearth, no longer waiting to the breath of the world, to the space between sounds, to the hush that always comes before something meaningful is spoken. And now you, too, may listen to that hush. The bell may be far, but its voice lingers in every leaf that turns, in every dream that floats just out of reach. Let your limbs grow heavy, your eyelids soft. Let the air settle around you like a velvet curtain being drawn over the day. The forge is quiet now, the night full and deep, and in this hour you need do nothing but rest. The bell watches, and sleep, like bronze poured at twilight, comes slowly, gently, completely. Later that night, he brought the feather to the forge. He did not place it on the workbench. He did not tuck it into his journal. Instead, he carried it to the hearth and set it in the ashes of the last fire he had ever lit. The embers were cold, but as the feather touched them, a faint glow returned, a single line of gold trailing through the soot like a forgotten path. He said nothing, only watched. And when the glow faded, he whispered, "You are heard." That night, his dreams changed. No longer did he dream of pouring metal or clappers swinging in steeples. Instead, he dreamt of bells that floated in water, clear bronze domes beneath the surface of a lake. They did not ring. They pulsed. Each time he stepped closer, he could feel a heartbeat. Not his own, but the bell's. And when he reached out to touch one, he woke. Not startled. Not shaken. Just aware. Aware that something had begun again. In the weeks that followed, the river rose. The rains were soft but steady. Mist curled through the streets like a cat returning home. And with it came stories. A boat, drifting freely, had come ashore in the middle of the night. No one aboard. But inside the hull, a bell. Small. Simple. Wrapped in sailcloth. And when the villagers lifted it, it made no sound. Until a child touched it. And then, only then, a single chime, pure as morning. He didn't need to. He simply nodded when told the tale, and said, "It knows where to go." And in his forge, not to cast, but to listen, to the metal, to the tools, to the wind that crept through the eaves, and played the rafters like strings. And one evening, as the last rays of light left the horizon, a hum, low and ancient, rising from beneath the floorboards, not threatening, not loud, but certain, like the memory of a vow. He bent low, pressed his palm to the earth, and there it was, a vibration, a call. The forge itself was singing, not out loud, not to the world, but to him. And he knew. Another bell was ready to be born, not of his design, not from his hands, but from his listening. So he gathered no molds. He sketched no patterns. Instead, he laid the tools before the hearth. He opened the shutters to the wind, and he waited. The forge would tell him what came next. And as you rest here, just as he rested then, let yourself feel that same hush. That sense that something good is coming, but it need not be rushed. It need not be forced. It will come when it is ready, just as dreams do, just as sleep does. And now you may let go even further, into the warmth of the story, into the stillness between chimes. Sleep waits. And the bell watches. Always. The forge waited in quiet shadow. And the Bellfounder too waited with it. Not with impatience, not with worry, but with reverence. He had learned long ago that some bells speak before they are born, not with words, but with moments. A child's laughter in a distant field, a shiver in the leaves of a willow tree, the first drop of rain on the lip of a copper bucket. These were the beginnings. These were the notes gathering in the world, and it was his work only to listen. One morning, he awoke to a scent that did not belong to summer or hearth. It was faint, but clear, like violets left in a stone bowl, or damp parchment left to dry in a sunlit cloister. It came from beneath his pillow. There, tucked into a fold of linen, was a sprig of rosemary, tied with a thread of bronze. He did not wonder who had left it. He did not speak. He simply rose, took the herb into his palm, and placed it upon the anvil. A gentle breeze moved through the open door. The rosemary trembled, then lay still. In the days that followed, he collected what the world offered. A smooth pebble left on the windowsill. A rusted key found near the abbey gates. A ribbon that had fluttered down from no hand, no roof, no tree. He placed each item on the forged stones, but not for worship, for memory. For some part of the bell he had not yet seen. Each object hummed in its own way, not aloud, but within his chest, like the soft echo of a voice he used to know. And then, one evening, he opened the door to find her. The girl. She stood barefoot, her hem soaked from the marsh reeds. She held nothing, said nothing, only looked at him with wide eyes that did not ask for shelter, but shared it, as though she had always belonged there. He stepped aside. She entered. Together, they sat before the hearth, and as the last light faded, she whispered, "I heard the bell in a dream." He said nothing, only stoked the embers with the edge of a branch, as he always did when silence meant more than words. She continued, "It was large. Too large for the abbey, too small for the sky. But it rang without sound, and when it rang, the river stopped moving." The Bellfounder looked at her, not with surprise, but recognition, for he had dreamt the same, only he had never spoken of it. That night, they kept the forge quiet. No flame, no metal, only breath, only presence. And in the hush, the girl took from her pocket a small piece of amber. Inside it, trapped forever, a curled insect, wings spread wide, frozen in flight. She set it beside the rosemary, beside the pebble and the key. And the Bellfounder whispered, "Now we begin." In the days that followed, they did not pour metal. They arranged the relics on the floor in a perfect circle, not drawn with chalk, not measured by hand, but felt, each item placed where the heart said here. The circle pulsed with quietness, not power. And when the circle was closed, the girl placed her palm upon the center, the anvil. She did not strike it. She did not press. She only rested her hand. And the room changed. The air grew denser, like thick velvet, drawn around the world. This time, he lit the fire. No rush, no roar, just a low, steady breath of flame. He reached for no mold, he lifted no crucible. Instead, he knelt. He whispered to the bronze the same prayer he had whispered as a boy. Let this bell speak not with my voice, but with its own. And the bronze began to melt. Not from the fire, but from the light, the glow of the circle, the shimmer of amber, the weight of stillness. As the metal softened, the girl began to hum, a note without words, a tone without beginning. It matched the flicker of the flames. It matched the old wind through the rafters. And slowly, the bell began to rise. Not built, not formed, but lifted. A shape of bronze and breath, dream and memory, floating above the hearth, turning slowly. A bell unlike any the world had known. The forge was silent now. Even the fire stilled. Even the wind outside held its breath. The bell no larger than a child's cradle hung midder. And with a breath from the girl, not a chime, not a toll, but a low, living sound that moved through the walls, through the stones, and people dreamed without fear. The bell's song was peace, not a command, not a miracle, just a returning, a remembering of how quiet can be sacred, how stillness can be a gift, and how, even in a world of storms, a single sound can remind the heart to rest. That faint resonance beneath your breath, that hush curling at the corners of your thoughts. Let yourself drift in it. Float on it. And trust. The story knows your name, and the bell is watching over you. Still. In the stillness that followed, the bell hung there, suspended over the warm breath of the forge. It did not spin. It did not shine. It simply was. And the Bellfounder knew it was done. Not finished, not closed, but whole. And what is whole does not need to change. It needs only to be held, to be heard, to be welcomed. He looked at the girl, and she at him. She did not speak, but there was a quiet smile at the corners of her lips, the kind that belongs only to those who have seen something sacred. He did not ask her name. He never had. Some names aren't meant to be spoken. Some are meant to be kept like songs in the chest or constellations in the memory. The bell, now still, began to lower. Not with force, but as mist settles on riverbanks. It came to rest on a bed of woven reeds, set beside the hearth. The fire, once burning, had softened to embers. And in their glow, the bronze of the bell shimmered, not like metal, but like wet stone. They sat beside it for a long while, the girl humming, the Bellfounder breathing slowly, listening. The hum was not a song, not a melody. It was like the hush of snow falling on a chapel roof, the hush of breath, just before someone says, "I remember." And as they listened, the bell began to change. Not in shape, but in story. Across the curve of its bronze side, a faint image began to appear, as if drawn by time itself. First, the river, winding like a ribbon, crossing hills, curling through towns. Then the willow tree, its branches reaching down like fingers to the earth. Then a forge, a man, a girl, a bell, etched not in lines, but in moments. Moments woven into the metal like dreams, casting glass. When the image was complete, the Bellfounder closed his eyes. He placed a hand upon the curve of the bell. The bronze was warm, not hot, like the skin of someone sleeping peacefully. And he whispered, "You are ready." But ready for what? Not to be hung in the abbey, not to be sold or rung for the town. This bell was not for ceremony, not for fear. It was for stillness, for returning. They carried it. He at one end, she at the other, through the sleeping village. No one woke. Not a single dog barked. Not a window creaked. Even the river flowed more softly. They passed under the willow tree. The branches stirred, not with wind, but with memory. As if the tree itself recognized the bell and bowed its head in greeting. At the edge of the river, where stone met water, they set it down. The girl stepped forward. She knelt, and with one finger, she traced the rim of the bell. A ripple passed over the surface of the water. A second ripple, a third, until the whole river seemed to shimmer with light. Not moonlight, not torchlight, but bell light. As though the bell's presence alone was enough to change the river's memory of itself. Then she rang it. Once, a single, deep tone. It did not echo. It did not fade. It simply held. A sound that did not pass through the ears, but settled in the spine, in the breath, in the place inside the chest where longing lives. And at that moment, every person in the town, asleep beneath blankets, their faces eased, their hands loosened. Even the children turned onto their sides, as if to better hear the quiet song waiting in the bell's stillness. It did not need to. One sound was enough. One note to remember what the world too often forgets. That rest is holy. That dreams are bridges. That silence is a language for those brave enough to listen. The Bellfounder turned to the girl. She was no longer small. She stood taller now, older, somehow. Not in years, but in presence. She nodded, and then she stepped into the river. Not walking, not sinking, just becoming part of it, as though she had never been a person at all, but a spirit of the bell. A dream with feet and breath and humming lips, returning now to where dreams begin. The Bellfounder did not cry. He did not call after her. He simply stood beside the bell, watching the water fold around her form until she was no longer visible, and the soft, steady glow of bronze. When he returned to the forge, it was morning. Sunlight pressed through the shutters. The fire had gone out. The circle of relics on the floor was gone. In its place, a single leaf from the willow, still green, still wet with dew. The bell had been left by the river, and there it would stay. Not as a monument, not as an offering, but as a promise. To anyone who stood at its edge, closed their eyes, and waited. You may stand there now. Feel the river pass beneath your feet. Feel the bells hum in the wind. Let it lull you, as it has lulled many before you. Let it keep you safe. Keep you still, and let it ring once more in your dreams tonight. The seasons moved gently over the village. Spring gave way to summer, and summer bowed into the gold hush of autumn. The bell remained, not rusted, not weathered, only softened by time. Children began to visit it, barefoot and curious. They'd press their ears to the bronze curve and swear they heard singing, not melodies, but feelings. The sound of a mother's shawl being wrapped around small shoulders, the hush of rain on window panes, the weightless silence of snow. No one taught them to do this. They simply knew. Some things, especially dreams, are inherited through the air. The bell became a place of return, of pause, of breath. Lovers carved their initials in the stones beside it. Fishermen left bits of river glass tucked near its base. Wanderers slept beside it on warm nights and woke without sorrow. And though it only ever rang once, that sound echoed in lives. His hands grew slower, his walk more careful, but his eyes, they remained sharp, like firelight in the dark. And when he smiled, it was never out of habit, only memory, only knowing. He still worked in the forge, though now mostly for the joy of rhythm, the clink of tools, the hush of metal being shaped. He would hum while he worked, sometimes to the tools, sometimes to the fire, and sometimes to something no one else could see. One day, he found a letter tucked into a crook of the old willow's trunk. It was wrapped in waxed cloth, tied with a cord of braided horsehair. Inside was a single sentence, written in a child's careful hand. She said, "The bell is dreaming still." He did not know who wrote it, nor how they knew, but he did not need to know. He folded the letter, placed it in the pocket of his apron, and went quietly back to the forge. That night, he stood once more by the river. He did not speak. He did not touch the bell. He simply stood, listening. And in that listening, he heard not sound, but space. The space where dreams breathe. The space where metal becomes story. and story becomes silence, and silence becomes ... everything. The moon rose, heavy and golden, the same phase as the night the bell was cast, and for a moment, a brief shimmer in the night, he saw her again, just as she had always been. Not outside time, but within it, like a candle within a lantern, glowing gently. She stood across the river, her hands folded, her eyes steady, and without words, without movement, she asked him, "Are you ready?" He did not answer with his mouth. Only his breath and his stillness said yes. The next morning, when the sun rose, pink and pale, the villagers found the forge empty. Not dusty, not abandoned, just ... complete. On the workbench lay his tools, arranged in a perfect circle, and inside its pocket, the letter, still warm to the touch. They never spoke of where he went, only what he left behind. The forge, now quiet, was kept as it had been. Children would slip inside to feel the worn handles of hammers, to smell the soot and iron and ash. Some said they saw footprints near the hearth on rainy mornings, bare feet. The bell never rang again, but people swore if you stood very still on the first frost of winter or the last rain of spring, you could hear the hum, not in your ears, but in your chest, in that place between heartbeats, where dreams and memory and quiet courage wait. Now, as you listen, as your breath deepens and your body softens, you may feel that hum too. The same hum that rang through the bronze and the river and the willow. The same hum that whispered through the Bellfounder's last breath. A lullaby of molten metal and mist, of story and silence, of the long, soft exhale that says, "You've come home." And so the seasons circled on, and the town by the river lived within a rhythm that pulsed quiet. Time didn't rush here. It strolled. You could measure it by the soft moss growing thicker on the old stone wall beside the bell, by the willow's branches growing longer, gentler, like arms cradling the earth, by the way the river spoke at dusk, lapping against worn wooden boats, like it was telling the same story again and again until it got the ending just right. Every so often, someone new would arrive in town, not by plan, not by map. They would follow the fog, or a feeling, or a feather drifting on a breeze, too strange to explain. Some would cry, quietly, not from sorrow, but because something inside them had been seen. Others would rest a hand on its bronze curve and whisper questions they had never dared to speak aloud. And sometimes the wind would answer. There were stories, of course. A child once dreamed of a bell so large it floated in the sky like a second moon, its ring clearing the clouds. A widow claimed that on the day she buried her husband, the bell glowed faintly, like a heartbeat pulsing in the fog. A Travella said he saw it shimmer just as he was about to leave, and instead, he stayed. And the villagers, though they didn't speak of it often, never doubted. Some things don't need to be proven. They only need to be held in silence. But beneath it all, beneath the stories and seasons and soft moss, the bell still dreamed, not of what it had done, but of what it had become. Not a bell, but a listening, a stillness so deep that it could hold everything, tears and laughter, goodbyes and homecomings, the ache of growing old, and the hush of being young forever. One winter's night, a storm rolled across the hills. Not a violent one, but one that came with a hush so thick the snowflakes seemed to fall without ever touching the ground. The town was tucked into sleep, fires glowing low, the sky silvered with cloud light, and in the forge, though it had long since grown cold, a faint warmth stirred. Just a flicker, like breath on glass, like something remembering itself. If you had stepped inside just then, very quietly, you might have seen a glow beneath the bellows. Not heat, but presence. The tools did not move, the bell did not ring, but the forge breathed. A long, slow breath, inhale, exhale, as if waiting, as if listening for the final page of a story nearly told. And in the dream space, where the bell slumbered beneath moonlight and time, there came a sound, like silk sliding from a table, like snow falling on river ice. It was the girl, the same one from long ago, the girl who'd dreamed the bell into being. She stood not beside it, but within it, as though she had always been part of its shape, as though the casting of bronze had simply revealed what was already there. She lifted her hand and touched the inside of the bell's heart, and where her fingers met metal, the bronze hummed, gently, deeply. She closed her eyes and spoke, not in words, but in tone. A tone so soft it passed through stone and sleep and distance. A tone that said, "It is time." Back in the village, people stirred. Not woken, just aware. Some rolled over in bed and smiled without knowing why. Some sighed as if a weight had left them. Some rose barefoot and walked into the snowy night without coats, drawn not by duty, but by the pull of something gentler than memory, older than sound. They gathered by the river, dozens, no words passed between them, only stillness, only breath. And in that hush, beneath the willow's white-dusted branches, the bell sang again. Not a ring, a song, low, vast, luminous. Luminous, the kind of sound that doesn't pass through your ears. The sound of letting go, the sound of being found, the sound of every "I'm home" ever whispered in the dark. The bell had dreamt long enough. It was time for one final story, one final echo. And as the villagers stood, their faces lit, not by flame, but by the glow of something unsayable, the bell's last note rolled over the hills and into the stars. And that note never faded. It became part of the sky, a thread stitched into twilight, a hush woven into morning. So if, one night, you find yourself lying awake, and the world feels too large or too quiet, listen, not with your ears, with your breath. The bell is still dreaming, and perhaps tonight it dreams of you. Our story lingers now, for even dreams, even the most patient ones, need to find a place to rest. The villagers stayed by the riverside long after the bell's final note had floated into the sky. They didn't speak. There was no need. Some sat on stones made round by centuries of water. Some leaned against tree trunks laced in frost. Some simply stood, hands open to the falling snow, faces lifted to a sky that somehow looked different, like it remembered them. Among them stood the old Bellfounder's apprentice. Not a boy anymore, but a man whose hands still remembered the shape of molten bronze, the dance of tongs and ladles. He had never become a Bellfounder himself. He had never needed to. For when the great bell had been poured, when the dream had passed through fire and metal, he had known that some things are made only once, and some dreams, once born, do not need repeating. Still, not to forge, but to listen. He had become a keeper of silences, a mender of stories, a guardian of the hush between words. And now, as he stood beside the others, his breath clouding the night, he felt a warmth rise inside him, but from memory. He closed his eyes, and in the dark behind his lids, he saw the bell again, glowing in the forge, newborn, radiant. And beside it, the girl, not older, not younger, just there. She turned to him and smiled. That same smile from all those years ago, the one that said, "You saw it too." He smiled back, whispered, "Yes." And just like that, she was gone. Not vanished, not lost. Just returned to where dreams go when they've been fulfilled, into the bell, into the breath of the town, into the hush that cradles sleeping hearts. And then, as softly as the first light before dawn, the villagers began to drift away. One by one, their feet leaving no prints in the snow, as though the moment had folded around them, tucking itself back into time. No one spoke of what they'd heard. They didn't need to. It lived in them now. A resonance. And so the bell stood silent once more. But its silence was not empty. It was full. Full of lullabies and laughter, tears caught in hands, promises whispered under stars. It held the weight of waiting, the warmth of return. And though it would never ring again, its song would never stop. Sometimes, a traveler would ask, Where is the bell that sings in the snow? It's gone, they would say. And then, if the traveler was quiet enough, if their question had come not from curiosity but from longing, the townspeople might add, but sometimes, if you listen just before sleep,
you'll hear it.
And so the dream settled, like dust on old books, like dew on mossy paths, like the last echo of something deeply kind. The bell had never been about warning storms or keeping sickness away. It had been a song for the soul, a warmth cast in bronze, a lullaby that kept ringing even when no one listened. Because it was never about the sound. It was about the space it left inside you. And now, here you are. Here we are, at the edge of the bell's dream. Can you feel it? That soft space behind your heart, where silence hums. That gentle echo beneath your ribs. That is the bell's gift to you. You don't need to understand it. You only need to rest. Let it hold you. Let the mist gather softly again, curling through branches, tucking between rooftops, folding around you like a woolen shawl. Let the bell's final note linger, not as sound, but as stillness. A lull so deep, it carries the weight of 1,000 good nights. Breathe in now, and as you breathe out, feel the bell's dream cradle you gently, like dusk on the river, like snow on stone, like a story that remembers you, always. Sleep, dreamer. The bell is keeping watch. The river, ever patient, curled around the village like a silver thread. By morning, it would carry the first light downstream, past frost-covered willows, past the empty bell tower, past homes with warm chimneys and dreamers still wrapped in slumber. Its waters murmured softly, not in speech, but in memory. And in that memory, the bell still glowed, not with fire, but with the heat of hearts that had once believed in something beautiful, not with sound, but with silence, so deep, so sacred. The Bellfounder, the old man of the forge, the keeper of moons and metals, was gone now. Some said he vanished in the mist, others that he had simply walked into the bell's final tone and never returned. But a few believed he still walked the river bank, barefoot in the twilight, humming the forgotten chant he once. And if you ever find yourself beside a quiet stream, with fog brushing the tops of reeds, and the wind holding its breath, you may hear him. Not with your ears, but with your soul. A hush, a hum, a heartbeat made of bells. Children born after the bell's casting still dreamed of it, though they had never seen it, never heard it ring. They spoke of warmth without fire, songs without notes, and a hush so deep it made their chests. Fathers would nod and look toward the river. They knew. They had heard it too. And in time, these children grew. Some became smiths, some became farmers, some became mothers and fathers. themselves. And the story passed on, not through books, not through sermons, but through stillness. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the world was soft and the heart was open, that's where the bell lived now. And even as centuries passed, and the world changed its shape, the roads paved, the forges cooled, the moon mapped and named, somewhere in a place untouched by time, not in towers, but in dreams. You see, some dreams are too big for just one lifetime. Some are poured not from ladles, but from longing. Some are cast not in bronze, but in the breath between two people who believe in something more. The bell was never just a bell. That silence could heal, that dreams could warm. That time, if treated gently, would sing for us. And now, it sings for you. Wherever you are, however tired, however still, the bell is ringing, soft as snowfall, deep as dusk, warm as love. So let it lull you now into the deepest sleep you've known. Let it hush your thoughts, slow your breath, cradle your spine. You are safe here. You are remembered. You are held. This is the soundless song you've carried all your life. You didn't know it, but you've heard it before in quiet libraries, in old wood churches, in the hush after laughter, in the stillness before dreams. It was always there. The bell has always known you. So now, dear dreamer, let the last notes fold over you like mist over the water. Let them settle like velvet across your eyes. Let them sink like warmth into your bones. You've walked the Bellfounder's path. You've touched the story. You've heard the silence. And now you've reached the shore. There's nothing left to do but sleep. The bell is dreaming now. And so are you.